progress.
All right. Morning, everyone. Great to see everybody for Kentaro's defense. You can see the title there, Solving a System of Inequalities, Decolonizing and Rehumanizing Mathematics in Somerville Public Schools. We are very fortunate to be joined today by Paul Revel, who you all know from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and Mary Skipper from the Superintendent of Somerville Public Schools. I think everybody roughly knows how these things go by now. Kentaro has half an hour to share some of the work that he's been doing this year. Then the committee has about half an hour to ask questions. If time permits, we'd love to have questions from the audience. Feel free to use the chat to ask such questions as they occur to you. And then at 9:30, we'll break. The committee will go off into a breakout room to deliberate, and then we'll invite Kentaro into that room, and then we'll come back and tell you all about the results of today. I'm really excited about this work. Somerville was really lucky to have Kentaro there this year, and Kentaro was really lucky to have such a rich, complex community to work with. With that, I will pass it over to Kentaro.
Thank you, Joel, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for zooming in, and particularly California family and friends. I know it's 5:30 in the morning there, so please know that's not lost on me. I really appreciate it. Family and friends from Japan and Canada, Germany and England, Texas, thank you so much for joining me today. So just before I launch in, I just want to say this is my passion area. Mathematics and equity has been the focus of my 25-year career. So there'll probably be some emotion in this defense. Please be ready for that, and we're going to get going. So just very excited to share this work. All right, so today I'm going to share about why this work, this language, decolonizing, rehumanizing, what's behind it. How did I go about the work? What did I do? So what, now what? I'm going to end with gratitude, and then we're going to move to some Q&A. So let's get going. All right, so why do this work? All right, what's behind it? So we humans are inherently and innately math people. We are problem solvers. We love and we seek out patterns. We are engineers. We build things, we fix things. In my case, I break things, but we are math people. So when someone says, I am not a math person, it is almost always because of this monster, this mutation that we've created called school mathematics. In school mathematics, there's often just one way to do things, which is the teacher's way. We pull out all the joy of what mathematics really is, and we tell students what to do, how to do it, that they need to do it this one way, what they can say, what they cannot say, and we control just so much of their experience with mathematics. We also categorize, we assign value to students. We sort them. Some can go into honors. Some might be able to go into AP. This is a lot of the work of schools and mathematics. We tell students, leave your humanity at the door. All that you bring in, the richness of your identity, all of the generations of your ancestry, the beauty, all of that, leave it at the door and enter into school mathematics and become a school math student. So this is a colonizing approach. This is a colonizing mindset that so many of our schools enter in with. So I was a high school math teacher for 16 years, and I loved it. And I have many memories of ninth graders coming in on the first day of school, not knowing me, never having met me, and they come in glaring at me, or they're cowering in fear because I represent school mathematics to them. This is completely an understandable response based on their background. This is my amazing daughter, Mia. This is 4 years ago when she was 7 years old. And I asked her permission to share this story, but she came home one day in second grade and just said, I'm not good at math. And I whipped around and I was like, in my head, I was thinking, what did you just say? And I just thought, what has school mathematics done to you? I'm a math teacher. My wife is a special education teacher with a math background. My son asks to do math problems in his own time, his free time. And I just thought, what has school mathematics done to you? Often it tells students, like my daughter Mia, that you are a failure, that something's wrong with you. Not that something's wrong with the crazy way we do math, but that you are not good enough, that you need to doubt your identity and your self-worth. So researcher Rochelle Gutierrez equates this colonizing mindset, this colonizing approach to what she calls dehumanizing mathematics, where we categorize students, we assign value to them, we force their compliance. And she calls for rehumanizing mathematics, where we bring in students' full identities and see all the assets they bring into our classes. And then we move from playing the game of mathematics to changing the game. We look at the power structures that exist at all levels of the system, and we change the game. But how? Like, how did this work happen in Somerville? How do we go about this work of decolonizing and rehumanizing? So I was lucky enough to gather up a group of this math vision group, this group of leaders who were already committed and wanting to look more deeply at math in the district, recognizing that there were issues that math was producing in the system and really wanting more equitable experiences and outcomes for students, looking at the practices, the structures, the policies, and really coming behind this. They wanted that. I was lucky enough to gather up a math teacher working group, 12 really committed teachers. We know that teachers are closest to the work of instruction, closest to students, closest to knowing what's going to work in a classroom. And also, if we want teachers to buy in, we need teachers to talk to teachers. That's the way a lot of this works. Teachers are often also closest to families. So this was a really critical component. Built in some interdependency. So basically, if the leaders wanted certain guidelines, say, we went to the teacher group and asked, what are the real concrete recommendations? And also for the teacher working group, when they had developed the recommendations, they went to the leaders and said, you have the formal authority, you have the power to push these forward. So we're asking you, please do so. So what do we do once we gathered up these two groups? We put data before them, and data tells a story, right? And also tells us what's happening in the system. And so this was some of the data we looked at very early on. And I'm going to ask you right now, can you take a minute, look at this data? Can you just match the student demographics with the percentages? So what percentage of students takes geometry, which is the higher level math course, in 9th grade in Somerville? All right, so we have Black, Latinx, white, Asian. We have 26%, 71%, 43%, 15%. So just in your head, can you match, like, what do you think is going with what? All right, and just right now, I'm going to just call up, just that you can make a prediction shows the inequities in our system. I would just want to point out, right, that just that we can take part in this matching shows the inequities in our system, that we can make this predictive, what we think is going to, where the data matches up, right? So this may be what you came up with. And the real challenge, the real difficulty is that this type of data, this gets replicated, not just in Somerville, it gets replicated in community after community after community in our country, right? That almost 3/4 of Asian students are being placed in geometry in 9th grade. And on the flip side, we have about 1 in 7 Black students being placed in geometry in 9th grade. So what did the district leaders say to this, right, when we put data before them? This is one of their responses. This is all our fault. Our principals have known this, and our teachers have known this. Something has to be done. And this is what data can do. Data can motivate, right? And this is a lot of even the reason I wanted to put data before the group. But not just that, we were lucky enough I was lucky enough to partner with some district leaders to create this student math leadership team. So these students came and presented to the math working group twice, and they're going to come more the rest of the year. They led our working group meetings, and we asked them, can you tell us about your experiences in math in the district? And they also looked at this data and they led out in our meetings. And let me put before you one of the sixth graders, what she asked the group. Why are Black people less likely to take geometry? So please sit with that question. And you know how the group responded? Exactly the same way. I went back and listened to the recording. There's 17 seconds of silence because this sixth grader has called out the system, has called out the adults in the system that have created this education infrastructure, where she has to ask this question: why are Black people less likely to take geometry? So how do we go about this? So I was really wanting to expand a vision for the Somerville teachers, this incredible, dedicated, talented staff in Somerville, incredible leaders, incredible teachers who want more. And so I called on my people from San Francisco Unified. I came out of this district, was lucky enough to be there 13 years. And they came and they said, we'll share what we've done. You guys are working on math. We know how important math is. They came out and these crazy Californians come over and they share these crazy ideas, like maybe you could make one math pathway that the school board actually adopts, right? So that all ninth graders are taking the same class to really limit the amount of segregation that goes on in the system, right? And instead of taking 5 different math courses in ninth grade, we could streamline this and make one math pathway. I also brought in English learner specialists and my wife, who's a special ed specialist, right? And they talked about, well, in our English learner program, a lot of the time we use content as a vehicle to teach language, right? So language is actually at the heart of this. And in doing so, we actually get results that are better for both in content in the math and also in the language. And my wife asked some questions about, like, are we teaching just the math skills? Are we asking, like, what are the larger skills we need to teach for students to succeed in school and in life? So just some questions for us to dig into. I also called on and asked a former colleague who was part of Stanford's Joe Bowler's Railside High study. He was the department head there, and he ended up coming and teaching with us at Mission High. And he created this teaching approach, or he really fostered this teaching approach where there are heterogeneous classrooms, right? Multi-ability classrooms, detracking it, and just having success for all students at all levels of the system. So he came in and he brought his former student, Anna Torres, who was a student at Railside High, to describe or tell us about her experience as a student. And then now she's a math teacher, both of them in Oakland Unified. All right, I also shared about my own background at Mission High. So I started at Mission, and it was the 5th lowest performing high school in California at the time. I got to spend 13 years, and when I left, a Mother Jones journalist wanted to write a book about Mission High. So, those ninth graders who came in glaring at me and cowering in fear, suddenly are seniors now. And something has happened to them in the course of their experience with us as we detract the honors program at our school. They now have this relationship with us. They're joking with me about my funny clothes I'm wearing, my funny shoes. But more than that, they're learning math, and they're believing that they can do math. And that maybe, just maybe, the narrative they've been told by society and by school that they cannot do this, that they are not capable of doing this hard mathematics, maybe that's not true. And suddenly we have this problem at Mission High where we have over enrollment in our 4th year, senior year elective math course, where we have to add another AP course, another, and we get 400% increase in our math AP enrollment, and then passing rates of students of color increase in those AP math classes. So this is what happens, right? And then students start believing they can maybe go to college. They go to college, they graduate college, and they return to their community. So this is what I've seen of rehumanizing mathematics, what impact this can have on school, but what it can have on students and what it can have on communities. And this is what I want for Somerville Public Schools and for all our communities. What else did we do? We brought in our partners, right? People who are doing this work and doing it better than I know how to. So we have partners, Maisha Moses from the Young People's Project, who centers youth voice in the design process and in the change process. We bring in Dr. Adrian Mims from the Calculus Project, who says we need Black and Latinx students in our advanced math courses. We bring in Lesley University, who's already providing professional development in Somerville in their new math curriculum in middle school, illustrative math. And we bring in, or Biogen already is funding a $10 million grant in Somerville and neighboring Cambridge. So all of these partnerships together are working to support this work. All right, so I look at how are we going to go about this, right? I reach back, I learned this 7-circle model from the National Equity Project even before I came to Harvard. But there's this green line, and they say, you know, if you want to look above the green line and do this work, often the work that we can see, the structures, patterns, processes, we want to change those. We have to also be really aware of what's below the green line, right? Relationships, identity, information, and all of this happening, right, within the system that has advantage, equity, social justice, and systemic oppression. We have to keep that all in mind as we push this work forward. And I also learned of this approach called Lead from the Middle this year. So our math teacher working group, our district leader working group, what if instead of a top-down effort, right, which often gets a ton of resistance, and instead of a bottom-up effort, which takes so much time, what happens if we lead from the middle? What happens if these groups reach out to district leadership and say, can you please move these guidelines forward? Can you move our recommendations forward? And can we bring teachers up and buy into this work? Can we lead from the middle? All right, so then I put together this fancy education term called a theory of action, which is basically, this is the plan. This is how I'm going to go about this work. So this is it. So if I create this interdependent group of math teachers and district leaders, and we focus in on the 7-circle model, right? We're going to look at structures, patterns, processes, and the relationships, identity, information in the district. Keep that all together. We're going to do this through looking at data, incorporating student voice, bringing in partners and experts in the field to expand the vision of what's possible in mathematics so that we can lead from the middle. Then we can change the structures, patterns, processes in the district that results in rehumanized math experiences and outcomes for students. All right, so what is it we actually did? So nice, you know, theory, nice ideas. So what is it I got to do? All right, so I asked district leaders what's really critical, and I heard, look at the 9th grade math placement guidelines. This is the linchpin. They said this is the place where K-8 meets high school, where students get placed in high school math, sets up their trajectory for high school, for college, for post-college, for their careers. This is a really critical element. As we saw, we already saw the data that was showing what's happening in 9th grade. So they said, please look at this. All right, so when I asked the teachers in the working group about this, about the guidelines, or what guidelines do you use? So one teacher said she didn't know there were guidelines. Another teacher said, I don't even know what all these classes are that 9th graders take. And then one teacher brought these guidelines from 2016-17. And I just gotta say, this teacher who brought these is a teacher of influence in the district. And if you don't know how districts work, teachers talk to teachers, and that's how influence happens. So if this teacher's using these guidelines, you gotta believe other teachers are as well. And what do these guidelines say? They say to get into the higher level geometry class, you need to have a strong work ethic. You need to have good organizational skills. You need to be able to think critically. you must be willing to get extra help before or after school. And I just need to ask, right? So what happens when my definition of a strong work ethic or good organizational skills differs from yours, right? And that could very well be based on our cultural frame of reference, where we're coming from, maybe our upbringing. We have different definitions. So who's defining this, right? And when we say able to think critically, aren't all students able to think critically? And then must be willing to get extra help before or after school, right? What happens if I want to get help? I'm willing to, but I take the bus to school. I can't get there before, and I have to go take care of my little brother or go work after school. So what happens in those cases, right? So just as we looked at these criteria, right, we saw these arenas of unconscious, this bias, right, potential bias in all of these criteria. So we were able to remove them, and we were able to create new guidelines that essentially said, if you pass 8th grade math this year, this COVID pandemic year, where we looked at 8th grade math and the high school's Algebra 1 course, and they lined up with just a few tweaks. We said, if you can pass it, you get moved into geometry in 9th grade. There are no more teacher recommendations, no more potentially biased criteria. All right, what else have we looked at? We were in these subcommittees right now examining this open honors geometry course for students next year that come into geometry in 9th grade. Can we not have a separate honor section and a non-honor section? Can we just have all students together, and students can opt in to take honors, to get honors, by doing potentially a few, maybe some extra work or different sets of problems? There's an acceleration program in Somerville called MX2, and one group would really like to look at stopping it, right? One of the subcommittees, this is a program that double accelerates students 2 years in math, and it's primarily white and Asian students. It creates quite a bit of segregation, and it creates problems for the high school as well, where students get placed. We were able to talk with the English learner department and the math department, and to move this pre-algebra course that's primarily newcomers learning English, can we move it to the math department so the math department can oversee it, so that they can shepherd this class and make sure the math is really solid, but also all the language supports are in there. And one group is looking at this integrated math sequence into high school. Instead of algebra, geometry, algebra 2, is it possible to have an integrated approach where students forget all this algebra between when there's geometry in the middle? And can we just make these connections and create an integrated pathway instead? So that's just some of the work that's continuing, which is really exciting. It's in the works. Finally, the district has adopted this illustrative math curriculum in the middle school. It's very popular in the country right now, and the high school is considering a pilot, right, of this work or this curriculum at the high school. So there might be a chance for coherence in the system. We'll see. All right. All right. So I'd love to share just some of our capstone has these implications for site for Somerville and for the larger education sector. And so I'd love to share some of those with you all. So I focused in on this whole decolonizing and rehumanizing work, and I'd love to share with you that work applies to me as well. So when I've thought about my own growth, this is work I need to also take part in. So when I interviewed for EDLD, Jal, who's the chair of this committee, he interviewed me and he asked me, why do you want to come to the program, right? And so I said something like, I want to show up better in contentious situations. And he engaged me in this 5 why protocol that we learned about in his class, where you just ask the person over and over, why? So he's doing this to me in the interview, and I'm freaking out, thinking like, I'm not answering the question well enough because he keeps asking me why. But I get down to, I answer him and say, well, I feel like being an Asian American leader in education is a liability. And he stops the protocol at that point. But this has been a lot of my work, has been really looking at my Asian American identity. I wanted to share, particularly in this time of anti-Asian violence and sentiment in this country, Jal also recommended this book when I was in his class, Forever Foreigners or Honorary Whites. I think the title really says this all, just ways in which Asian Americans are seen as foreigner or honorary white. And for me, a lot of this work has been sort of when I step into situations. I'll use Somerville as an example, just because it was my residency site, but it's primarily white leadership. I also got to work with city leaders, also primarily white leadership. And when I step into these spaces, I recognize that I perceive stereotypes and I can sort of sense them, right? Or I perceive them. I'm going to own that I perceive them, that Asians are passive or non-communicative, or we lack vision, and I can react to those, and I can want to compensate for those, and prove those wrong. So I will make this I will exert extra effort to kind of be more forceful, enter in more strongly. And I think through EDLT and through this process, through a mindfulness class with Meta McGarvey, who's on the Zoom, I think, just to be able to note that, right? To say like, okay, this is happening. Can I still enter in fully? Can I welcome both like the fullness of who I am and the fullness of everyone here, that in all their complexity? And can I welcome all of this and move forward in authenticity and grace? I also wanted to share that I was leading this work in decolonizing and rehumanizing, and I recognized in myself that the very kind of effort I'm trying to lead, I can't lead out of those same kind of tactics, right? So what I see in myself is that I can approach this work with a very colonizing approach. So I had to apologize twice formally to the groups I was leading, to just say, I recognize like I'm trying to control this. I'm trying to control the outcome. I'm starting to like assign value or categorize. I'm doing the very same thing that I'm trying to have the system move away from, right? And anyway, it's just I'm implicated in this all as well, right? Like, just this is so insidious. This is just very second nature of how I operate. So that colonizing approach needs to be really examined in me. We also write about implications for site, right? For Somerville Public Schools. So I would love to just share that Somerville is extremely strong in its operations and management. And we saw that this year with COVID, with the COVID crisis, with the pandemic, to get schools reopened, to negotiate with the union. Mary and I were just talking about that before, right? All of these operations and management components are really strong. And I would really encourage the district to equally give focus to instruction. When I talked with district leaders and principals, there was a real desire and an ask for more time to focus in on instruction. The principals and the cabinet, each group meets for an hour a week. And they've said it's not just this year, they've said it's not just the pandemic year, it's previous years as well, that they would love to have dedicated time in those groups to focus in on instruction, even maybe smaller groups. In particular, this new math curriculum that the middle schools adopted, they've said, I would love to learn more about this. I don't even know how to support my teachers in this. So to embed that in these existing structures, these existing meetings, maybe just once a month with English language arts, once a month with math, maybe 30 minutes each. That would just be a huge step forward for the district. I want to also just advocate for the district to keep going in the math work that's begun. One of the teachers wrote, they are the most hopeful they've been in 4 years that this work is moving forward, that things that they've hoped for and wanted, that it's happening in the district. So I would really advocate for that. Lesley University, this Biogen grant, they've reached out to me just to continue on a short-term basis to continue this work. Whether it's me or someone else, I just really encourage the district to keep this going. All right, just the last thing are implications for sector. So what can we say for the larger sector as a whole? I've spent my whole life in California. There's a ton I've learned coming to Massachusetts, right? I knew beforehand Massachusetts had the highest test scores in the country, that the funding was a lot higher than California. And I've seen a lot of this, and amazing infrastructure, really great things happening in the state. So this is some of the difference, right? In 2018, there was about $20,000 per pupil spending in Somerville. San Francisco Unified was 12,000, right? About $8,000 difference per pupil. That's a lot. This is what I found, and again, this is a small sample size, but I've wondered about this. My kids also go to Cambridge Public Schools, which is ridiculously well funded, right? Almost like probably $10,000 more than this. I've wondered whether in districts that have more money, when there's a gap, whether you fill a role or you fill a hole. And this is my question to the larger sector, right? In California, there's not money to kind of fill this gap up. So we have to become innovative and fill the hole. And I'm not advocating toothpaste and walls, but this is what we have to do. So I wonder about that innovation piece, just because we don't have the money. I want to also just share some work in Southern California. These 3 small to medium-sized districts, Colton, Yucaipa, Rialto, I got to work with. They were really creative in their partnerships, right? If one ran professional development, sometimes they would invite the others in just to share resources. They were creative about their staffing even, and whether they might be able to kind of share some of the staff resources. So I wonder about that with Somerville and Cambridge. Just this year, we've begun a partnership around math, and what can we learn from each other? What possibilities might exist? All right, last thing for the sector. My parents are from Japan. They were educators for just a short time, and they have a national curriculum, right? And we don't have that in this country. Maybe the closest we came, it wasn't curriculum, but we tried these Common Core standards. It didn't go as far as maybe we wanted, but this is my wondering, right? Is because in this country we can't do this kind of top-down mandate. This work with illustrative math, this curriculum, the Gates Foundation is funding it. They're funding research around it as well. They're funding its development and its scaling. But what I've found, right, it's open source, so teachers can get access to it. But what I'm also wondering is on a national scale, what's happening is because there's so much access to it, teachers are creating these groups, right? These online groups. And maybe this is the closest we're going to get to sort of a national movement that connects teachers to teachers, right? I was talking to an illustrative math teacher last week, and they asked me, did you go on the Facebook group? So this is happening. All right, so my last thing I want to say, this is the title of my capstone, Solving a System of Inequalities. So we often talk about problems in the system, right? In the education system. We create these boundaries, we define, we impose constraints, we put up roadblocks and barriers. We determine what criteria will be, what the criteria is going to be, who's going to get in, who's going to be greater than, what are we going to optimize, what are we going to prioritize, and who's going to be less than, right? So to increase the solutions in mathematics, what we have to do is we have to change the nature of the inequalities. We change the less than sign to the greater than and vice versa, and barriers are removed. So what if what we consider greater than these accelerated students, right? What if we look at Joe Buller's research that says these students don't feel like they can ask questions or show they don't know. They have high anxiety and stress. They stop liking math. What happens if all that we're doing for them is actually less than? And what if the students we consider less than, right? Those that we look at with deficits, what happens if we actually see that all they're bringing to our system enriches the system and pushes us in our instruction and our service, all within the whole system, right? This is a rehumanizing approach. I want to say if we perpetuate these same inequalities, we will continue to get the same set of solutions of those who succeed and those who fail in our system. So to get rid of the boundaries, we have to, I want to turn to civil rights leader, math visionary Robert Moses, who says we need radical equations. We need to change the sign. We need to flip the script. We need to shade outside the boundaries. We need to value and welcome all that students are, expand our vision so we can see students not as liabilities, but as those who can elevate the system as a whole. We will then rehumanize mathematics. We will rehumanize our students. We will rehumanize ourselves, and then we can rehumanize the system. Thank you. I'd like to just end with some quick thanks to many of you, my family that I grew up in, my family in Germany and in England, Japan and Canada, to Sabrina's family. Thank you so much for your love. my faith communities growing up, my home church in Pasadena, my college Christian fellowship, my church in San Francisco and in Cambridge. I want to call out my youth pastor, who was a longtime teacher at Garfield High School, auto mechanics teacher, where he taught alongside Jaime Escalante from Stand and Deliver. Harold, he's praying, he's probably praying for me because I needed it. Harold was like a father to me. I want to thank my San Francisco friends, too many to name, but we're really excited to be returning to the Bay Area. So thank you, some El Paso friends too. And I want to thank our cohort. Love you guys. Workplace Lab, Pod, Stephen. Thank you all. I want to thank my professional communities, Connect Ed, Mission High, San Francisco Unified. I'm really thrilled to be able to add Somerville to this. Just incredible professionals. Calling out some of the people who have mentored me, including Jessica Boston Davis, who in Somerville, who's been just an incredible support this year for me, an EDLD grad. Thank you. I want to thank the Harvard faculty so much for what an incredible 3 years. I want to thank my executive coach, Bill, my therapist, Kevin. And I also just want to call in David Cohen, who passed away this year. He's an incredible human, incredible scholar. He took me out to tea twice during his class, and he kept asking me, what do I think of the system? And I was like, David, I want to know what you think. Wine, bread, and cheese in his class is like my kind of class. It was amazing. Finally, my committee, I want to say thank you, all. I respected your work even before EDLD. I respect you all the more. You are just incredible in your humanity and your humility. You respect the system and practitioners. A lot of fondness for you, a lot of respect. Paul, thank you so much. You know, I'm a little naive about politics. I admit to that. I think your class, I don't want to say it made me paranoid, but definitely made me think like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Is this like a conspiracy? Like what's going on behind closed doors? So anyway, it just made me much more politically aware. So thank you, Paul. Mary, we talked and we joked about, this was a little bit like where California meets Boston. Hopefully this touchy-feely Californian could show you that he could be Boston strong as well. So thank you. Thank you for all your support. And then last, I want to thank my wife, Sabrina, Kai, and Mia. Thank you. I know you uprooted everything to come here, and we left everything in California. Like people were saying, this is crazy. Like it's supposed to be midlife crisis. Who sells their home and leaves amazing careers and community? And I just said, you know, I want to show up better. And I hear this program breaks you down and builds you up, and I feel like I need that. You said, let's go. So thank you. Thank you for that. All right, we're in the Q&A portion. So thank you all. And I drench my committee. May the grilling begin. Thank you.
All right. Kentaro, can you stop sharing for a sec so we can see?
Sure.
All right. That was spectacular. Let's come off of mute and congratulate Kentaro.
Yay!
Bravo, beautiful.
Congratulations, that was beautiful.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Heartwarming.
Hermoso,
Bravo,
Kentaro.
Great work.
Okay.
And I can't pass on a teachable moment. Plus, I can't really speak very well right now. So briefly in the chat, what made that so good? Any dimensions are up for consideration. Just let's just fill the chat just with the different. You can pick a small thing. You can pick a big thing. Like you can talk about the aesthetics. You can talk about the presentation. You can talk about the storytelling. Let's just take a minute to just sort of like think about. We just saw a really inspiring presentation, and why was that the case? All right. So that can continue on. But let's save the chat and give it to Kentaro as a small token of our appreciation of the work that he's done. I'm also glad this is going to be recorded because we can use it for future students as they think about how to do this. Kentaro, you should know that as you were speaking in the chat, there was a lot of people saying we want to bring this work to our district. This story needs to be heard across the nation, because as you point out, the specifics are true to Somerville, but the problem is national, and the way that you've reframed it gives us a sort of powerful way of thinking about it across the country. Okay, so yeah, let's do some questions. The first question for me is, were there any stumbling blocks? Like, did you have any teachers who were like, math teachers are sort of famously, kind of like they have their view of like what it means to do math, and especially high school math teachers can be sort of like high school math is about like sorting the wheat from the chaff, and like I teach and some kids are better at it than others, and don't put those kids who aren't as good at math from their perspective into my honors class. That'll just slow us down, or those are common sentiments among math teachers. So were there any kind of bumps along the road, and how did you handle some of those?
Sure. So yeah, thank you, Joel. I totally recognize your characterization of math teachers. I really am one at the core, and I see my people in that. I've gone to work with over 1,000 math teachers in this country, and so I certainly see a lot of the issues. I think I've really thought about just the developmental trajectory of teachers, of educators. I'm a little older than many of my cohort. I've been in this 25 years, so I think there are ways where I see where people are, and I see myself where they are, and recognize that. I do try to extend grace, but I wrote about in the capstone, one of the times I had to apologize, right, was where a teacher voiced, I want assessments in the guidelines. And we ended up putting assessments in the guidelines. But I was fairly opposed to it, right? And so there are these hiccup moments, right, where I'm wanting to kind of impose something, but this teacher, right, is where they are, and just really affirming that and wanting to bring that in. I would say the other just hiccup in this whole year, when I started the year, it was onboarding. It looked like I was going to do math and equity, and then Mary and I decided I'd pivot to reopening and health and safety protocols, and that's why I pivoted there. And then as we talked, it was like, there's this math work that we want done. I want it done. The district wants it done. Can we pivot back? And that was also a hiccup for me. It meant sort of a late pivot. It really, I wrote about this in my capstone, but it hit on my ego, and I was like, I'm not going to get done. I can't show off all the things I want to show off, and I had to like kind of confront that and say, it's not about me. It's about the system and all these leaders putting in what they need to put in right now. So anyway, I think there certainly were hiccups in this. Trying to learn to respond openly and graciously, and welcome it, and welcome the learning for myself and the system from all the different viewpoints.
All right, great. I have more questions, but let's get everybody involved. Paul, question from you.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Kentaro, for a presentation that was impressive, it was clarifying, and it was moving. So much appreciated. And you've got a lot of love coming from the audience on this. So I think that's terrific. At the risk of inducing further paranoia, I'm going to go to the political questions associated with this. You're working in a particular community, as you alluded to in your capstone. This is a community, among other dynamics occurring, there is a gentrification pattern, and that's changing the demographics, changing attitudes, complexifying the work of leaders like Mary Skipper, who have to contend with satisfying many different constituencies. So I'm interested in that feature in the immediate environment, as you move toward the politics of messaging, the kind of change you want to bring about. You're very clear on the problem statement. I think that's moving and that's compelling. It's in the answers where the rubber hits the road in the how you do it that upsets the existing order in the status quo and sometimes inspires resistance. So I'm interested in what lessons you've taken from the immediate situation in messaging in that changing environment. And then secondly, let's face it, Cambridge and Somerville and San Francisco are not typical American communities. So the way in which you promote and scale the kind of change that you're advocating nationally, it's almost something that that I'd like to see more of in your implications sector. Is how do we scale this? What are the arguments? How do we make it compelling? What's the language we use? So on and so forth to get other people to subscribe to this pathway that you so thoughtfully and passionately advocated.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So for the first question about messaging, well, I was very grateful to be able to present to the education programs of the school committee. There was a high level of interest in this work and around the placement guidelines, and not just these math placement guidelines, but I really appreciated the school committee's response of saying, we want to look at this largely in our system, right? How is honors playing out? How's placement made, not just in math, but across the system? So I really appreciated that, right? That's one part we need is the school committee, the school board on board. Having leaders who want the change makes a huge difference, right? Which we do in Somerville, that we have leaders who are wanting to push for equity. I think there has been communication to families. Even some of this work with MX2, this acceleration program last summer, working with Jessica Boston Davis on an email out to families to say, this is going to be on pause as we examine the implications from an equity standpoint. I also want to say this takes years, right? This is like undoing years and years of programs, even just this MX2 program that began as like a couple of students kind of informally going to the high school becomes this formalized program, and all of a sudden you have dozens and dozens of kids, right? So just to say that this is going to take this took years in San Francisco, right, to get to this point of a board adopted policy. I think there is communication going. There is this whole buy-in of teachers creating even this integrated math pathway potentially at the high school. If teachers buy in, teachers are often the best advocates to parents and to say, this is what I see, this is what I see as beneficial for your student. So anyway, I think there is this whole range of work happening with that. I know prior years, Mary and the KA coordinator put out a memo to families about how the district approaches math. So all of that, right? And it is work that takes place over time. I think on a national level, honestly, there is some hope for me around this illustrative math work that there are these asks around instructional shifts with it, that it is getting taken up so broadly around the country. I think that there's hope around sort of this change, right? That it has open access, for it's open source for teachers and districts. I think there is hope. I think some of this work, a lot, I think for educators, seeing is believing. So to see some models of what this can look like at places like Railside High, which unfortunately their math department had to disband. But there is this work happening. I know mostly in the Bay Area, in San Francisco and Oakland, but just that there is this work happening, and to show this work, I think can go a long way. And then to look at what are all of the components that are needed. This is a really complex set of work, right? It's all intertwined. It's messy. So let me stop there.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting from a political analysis standpoint. I mean, Jal pointed to one of the areas of resistance. I mean, you have to sort of analyze where's the resistance to building momentum for change. And one of it is with faculty with sort of hidebound ideas about how we ought to classify people and advance people and so on and so forth. The other comes from parents, the kind of parents who are benefiting from the existing order. And let's face it, all parents want their kids to be challenged. And if you propose solutions that to them seem like their kids aren't going to be challenged or have an opportunity to grow, they tend to be politically powerful and can organize in ways that puts a stop to this movement. So as you think about the movement, it's not just the logic of the numbers that dictates, yes, we ought to do something, but it's also how you diffuse some of that opposition as you move forward to create a pathway and some receptivity in the teaching force, particularly among members who might resist, and among parental constituencies who have power and can influence and stop change as well.
Sure, no, absolutely. And I mean, just the model I have of this is in San Francisco Unified, right, with then Superintendent Carranza, who, you know, recently stepped down from the NYCDOE, but just with an equity agenda and led this in the district, had a school board behind him, and sort of, you know, unapologetically went forward with this, had a math leadership team take this on, and it was a multi-year process, multi-pronged, and there was opposition, right? White and Asian families at school board meetings voicing their strong opposition to this, but eventually it is policy now, and this is primarily how the district operates.
Okay, thank you.
Mary.
Thanks, Joe. So congratulations, Kentaro. Well done. And,
Thank you.
you know, I think, you know, you had great courage to take on a topic that I think, as you and I spoke about in the year of the pandemic, was something that had a sense of urgency for us, but we didn't have the collective bandwidth to do it. And so I think, you know, a lot of the work you did in the middle, to be able to bring the groups together, I think has paid off in terms of both opening eyes, but also in laying a path forward, right? I want to pick up a little bit on something Paul said on the political side of it, and it has to do with the parent piece. You know, I think we end up playing defense with gentified parents, right? We tend to figure out how can we neutralize or block, as opposed to thinking about how we can activate all the other voices in the system. Yeah. So all those percentages of our Black and brown students who are not getting access, how can we help support a demand? You know, much like you did with the student voice, right? You had students, you engaged them, you activated them so they could ask the questions that would cause people to pause for 17 seconds. And so I'm curious, in your previous districts and work, have you seen strategies that you would suggest for Somerville where it's not so much about placating or blocking or defending against the gentified, because that's going to always be, and policy will take some neutralization of that, but it's about creating a groundswell of demand for what our students deserve, our Black and brown students deserve in terms of access and opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for the question. I do recognize the complexity of this. And so what I have seen and what I see in Somerville right now with the adoption of illustrative math at the middle school, and then a potential kind of movement into the high school, reimagining some of the work of mathematics at the high school, how it can be sequenced, what could be taught, how it could be taught. I think there is a ton of potential there that could share a vision for parents about what is it we're offering, what is it that students are really getting from their experience in our schools, and then to show that they aren't missing out, right? Like they still can get access to all of these advanced coursework, right? So even, I know in the working group, right, there's been some suggestions of like, well, can we actually offer something like computer science in 9th grade instead of accelerating math, right? I mean, or APCS, or like just different approaches that might slow down the acceleration that only promotes segregation. So just exploring, I think, the different possibilities that that would meet the demand, right? And then ultimately, I think there is something, and this is a huge shift, right? To say it's a shift, a instructional shift, a mindset shift around, do we believe that serving all of our students, Black and Brown students, right, is actually elevating the whole system, right? And not seeing it as deficit or like deterrent, or like whether we believe this or not, whether the teachers believe it, whether administrators believe it or not, that goes a long way, right? And then the teachers are the ones talking to parents and saying, no, this is what your kid is getting in my class. Like, this is the experience they're getting. Anyway, so I wonder about that. I mean, I think it's this multifaceted, you know, again, multi-year approach that would need to happen. But yeah, I appreciate it. It is a very complex situation, certainly.
So let's do a second round. So you organized in two groups. You organized a group of teachers, math teachers, and then you organized a district leadership team. And I think, you know, it clearly a change of this magnitude, as Paul and Mary are saying, is going to involve everyone eventually. Like eventually, like Mary is going to be answering questions with her board, and principals are going to be answering questions to parents, and there may be things that district leaders can do that will facilitate the work of the schools. So I very much understand this idea that like you really need to get everyone on board from the bottom to the top if it's going to work. I guess my question was, why did you choose a sort of an alternate approach would have been to put together some sort of committee that involved all of these different stakeholders, but instead you chose to have basically like a math teachers group and then kind of a leadership group. And so I just wonder why you made that choice, what you see as the kind of pros and cons of that structure. What happens if the groups start moving in different directions, like the math teachers want one thing and the leadership group is thinking about something else? So just interested as a sort of, and if possible, since I think myself and a lot of people listening are interested in math, but we're also interested in sort of change processes more generally, if you could sort of say something about like, you know, what do you think of this as like a model for a change process? Would it work for other things? I guess that's two questions in one. But let's start with the first one. Like, why did you choose this structure, and what were the kind of pros and cons of it?
Sure. So quite honestly, some of it was just the constraints given to me. So when we convened the district leaders, there's so much going on right now, right? And quite honestly, the pandemic and reopening schools was the front burner issue. And this is one of those important but not urgent matters, right? I mean, mathematics is super important, but it's just the urgency was around get schools reopened this year safely. So that said, district leaders voiced that they could offer a set amount of time a month to get. So that was a lot of that was a big part of the constraint, which is why we kept them separate, because the math teachers, as they worked, really went granular about what do these recommendations mean, what are the implications, how do they roll out, who needs to talk to whom, what are the steps, what's the timeline, what are the measurements? I mean, and this is still work in progress, right? So that was a lot of it, was just the sort of granularity, and trying to keep the two groups kind of aware of what the other's doing, and what's happening for each group, the mechanisms between. So that was some of it. So I would say the benefits and challenges, I would very much love to have had the whole group convene. We did have representation from the Math Vision group, the leaders group, with the teachers at every meeting. Some overlap between the two, so there is some representation between the two. But you know, certainly communication would have been facilitated. I think having a vision moving in the same direction would be facilitated by this, but it just isn't realistic given the way that, you know, the timeline and the demands of district leaders and the availability of them. So I think Somerville has amazing leadership team and amazing teachers who really want this. And so there are teachers willing to put in, right? We've already met probably over 20 hours since January, and teachers are willing to put this in. So there's really dedicated staff for this, and then also district leaders who really want to see this move forward.
And if someone out there was trying to do something in science or literacy, would you recommend the same structure, or is there something sort of specific about math that makes this a good way to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I may be biased, but I did think this was a really effective way where there was a district leadership team and a teacher team, and there was some overlap between the two. And I would love to convene both together. It just, so far it hasn't been able to happen, but there is communication between the two groups. So I would advocate for this.
All right, great. Paul and Mary, it's 9:34, though I'm suspecting that our deliberating time won't be that long. So I think we have time for another short question or two, if either of you have one.
Sure. I want to ask a question just about pacing. And you had a lot of interesting reflections in there about leading from the middle. Your situation, by virtue of being a resident, is sort of you arrive in the middle, and I think you work the middle really well as you did your work here for reasons that have already been described both by you and by others talking about it. I wonder what your advice would be to a leader with authority in a system who makes a choice to want to lead from the middle, at least for a period of time on something like this. And how do you strike a balance between allowing sufficient process and deliberation and participation on the one hand, and needing to call the question on the other hand? I mean, you've said this work takes years, but oftentimes leaders with authority don't have years. They need to show results along the way. And so how do you strike that balance if you're a leader with authority trying to assume a lead from the middle position, at least for part of the process, and then trying to calculate when do you call the question? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have appreciated seeing some of this in action in Somerville. I think even the reopening task force having a diverse, right, administrators, you know, I mean, just all like teacher union reps, right, we have representation all around this work. So this collective work of all levels of the system, and making sure that the teachers union is bought in, right? That principals are bought into this work, district leaders, all of the special ed department, early ed. I mean, so I appreciate that, this element of making sure, you know, all folks that are impacted by this are brought in. And so I do wonder, I've seen that, and I appreciate that model this year. I think it is really tricky to be a leader with formal authority to lead from the middle. I think that this is a very tricky proposition. I think this, just whenever we have that formal authority, I think it does something, right? It really changes the way people react and respond. And I wonder if in doing so, it's actually better to have an outside facilitator to lead it, and the leader, the district leader, plays a participant role as much as possible, right? And I mean, I think even in some of this work I've been able to do this year, I did the same thing. One of the district leaders who had led a lot of this continuous improvement work, I just asked her, like, would it help you if you are actually a participant and I facilitate, and it allows you to actually voice what all the things you want to do, and you probably can't do that as facilitator, right? So, and it seems to have worked out well, right, for both this leader and also for the group as a whole. So, anyway, that's what I would put out.
And incidentally, that's a model that a lot of organizations and school departments, for that matter, use in terms of strategic planning, so that everybody can participate. Thank you.
Mary, do you have one last question?
Sure. I'm just curious, in terms of reflection, Kentaro, as you think about the issues that exist in the lower grades of the system that get us to the point where by the 8th grade, we're making a lot of these assignments and attributions to students that aren't accurate and are biased. do you feel like the model that's laid out of leading from the middle is applicable to the younger grades, that we could do a similar type of model with, say, the 3rd and 4th grade math teachers and the 5th and 6th grade, where you also have a jump off of course selection?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think one thing in Somerville, the principals are just excellent. I just, each one that I've talked to, I've been really impressed by, and just the expertise and their commitment. So certainly, I think there's the leadership there. I think the leading from the middle, absolutely. I am encouraged that Somerville is looking at the K-5 math curriculum adoption soon, and I think there is this opportunity, right, for potential coherence in the system around curriculum, and we'll see where where that goes. But to really come around shared instructional approaches, again, like what I've seen in the district, and it's hard, everything via Zoom, but just this really dedicated, talented staff. When I have gone into Zoom classrooms, just the expertise of the teaching via Zoom, right, is it's evident. So there's just so much potential, and I just wonder about these components of the system, like this curriculum adoption, that could really promote, really push forward the district towards coherence. Certainly the staffing is there. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. All right. I think we need to move the committee to a breakout room to deliberate. Folks are welcome to talk or ask Kentaro questions while we're gone, and then we'll come back and invite Kentaro into our deliberations, and then we'll come back as a whole group to the larger group. So I think we are ready for our breakout room.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I see you all. Thank you. It's really, really wonderful to see you, and really appreciate your support. I see some California people, and anyway, just really thank you very, very much. So Gary, I see you. Tamika, thank you. Really wonderful to see you. Jess, I called you my BFF in SPS. Thank you, Jess. Sarah, thank you for your leading. Jen, thank you. Michael, great to see you. Chad, thank you. Love, Sabrina, and Mark, thank you for being here. Mariko, so early in California. Thank you, Trish. Thank you for that. Thank you, Richard, Zach, Eyal, thank you very much. Eric, good to see you, man. Karen, thank you. Jocelyn, Tim, Jay, thank you so much. Really great to see you. Toll, thank you. Thanks a lot. Jeff, thank you. Scott, Amanda, wow, these early California risers. Kenya, thank you. So incredible to see you all. Thank you, Bill.
Can we all come off mute to cheer for you real quick, Kentaro?
Oh yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Woo, buddy.
Yeah.
Great job.
Great. Kentaro, that was amazing. Absolutely excellent. I was like, I don't know if these are the pregnancy hormones, but I am getting misty-eyed over here. So that was excellent.
Thank you, Jess. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Denise, thank you. See you soon in our math planning. Thank you so much, Colton, who's here.
Great job, Kentaro.
And so thank you, Craig. Good to see you. Thank you so much. I know it's ridiculously early in California. Thank you, Jen.
I was actually in a sleep study here in Danville, so I was awake anyway.
You should be sleeping then, maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mandy, thanks,
bet.
Mama. See you there. Thank you. Tomoko, thanks so much. My cousins in Toronto and Canada, thank you so much. Berenice, thanks so much. Lisa Greenhill and Dan Yamamoto, my friend and former colleague. Karen, my friend dentist. Thank you so much. Anne, my cousin, thank you so much for being here. Natalie, thank you. Just, yeah, really overall appreciate it. So
love your passion, Kentaro. Very inspiring leader in the community. many communities that you are a part of. Grace is truly fueling your life.
Oh, thank you, Richard. This is Sabrina's dad. Just a really amazing person and inspiration. Thank you very much for that, Richard. Thank you.
Kentaro, just one, I miss you. I miss talking to you, seeing you. But just, so the group knows, Trish and I, Trish is the math department head at Somerville High School. We're going to meet next week and look at the incoming ninth graders, their placements, and make sure that based on those recommendations, students are placed where they're supposed to be. I know in some of the data that we talked about, we still had students that were meeting the criteria, not being placed in geometry. So we're going to make sure that your work continues to move forward. Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, this is Chad, who's the assistant superintendent in Somerville. So that's really great to hear. Thank you, Chad. That's great. Thanks. I see my nephew, Hano, and his fiance, Terry, hoping to make your wedding out in Germany in July. Hoping that everything works. Really looking forward to that. And also thank you, Keitha, Tina, who've been great partners, my mom, thank you. Just seeing a Grace Fellowship here, thank you so much. My cousin Aya. Yeah, folks from Colton who are showing up. Norm, thank you so much. SCC 10, really great to see you. And Terry from Texas, thank you so much. Brian Pick, the great friend Stephen, thank you. AL, thank you, Matt. Great C10, C9 here. Leslie, so much love. Lori Walton from Colton, really thank you for your early morning. Jocelyn, thank you. San Francisco Unified folks, thank you so much. Incredible that you are awake. So thank you for coming out. Thanks for being part of my professional journey and personal journey, growth in my life. I hope I can give back ways that you've all given to me. So thank you. Thanks for pouring yourselves into me, being patient. There's some department members here who I'm sure I led with colonizing approaches. So anyway, thank you so much for your patience with me over these years. Thank you, George. I see you from my former roommate who was yeah, anyway, great to see you, George. Thank you so much. Really, really wonderful. So thank you, Sue from Lesley University. Really doing great work. Really appreciate you all. Yeah, we.
Kentaro, I will agree with your father-in-law. That was extremely inspiring. It was a wonderful way to start the morning here out in California. I'm looking forward to having you and your family back in the Bay Area. That was really a wonderful surprise. Because I think you told me previously, you guys thought you might stay out there.
Yeah, that was our plan. It's been a very recent pivot. So yeah, this Michael from we went to high school together. So back in the Bay Area. So we'll see him when we get back. He's in San Francisco. So
I've heard work, but good luck.
Okay, thank you so much.
I've heard lots of complaints about Zoom, but I have graduated many times, as you know, and I've never had this kind of participation. It's really inspiring to see you nearly spanning the globe in the group that is attending this ceremony. Congratulations for reaching out across borders and cultures, Kentaro. You're a unifying force.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for those words. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. I see really inspiring Zach. Anyway, thank you all very, very much. So much love and encouragement to keep going. And Tamika, I feel you right now and receive all that you bring. And thank you. Thought of you many times these 3 years. Thank you. Our lunch is out in Berkeley. Thank you all so much.
Hi, Kentaro.
Hey, Amanda, really good to see you. Thank you.
You're amazing. These boys have donut holes to share. Do you say
Thank
hi?
you.
Say hi, Kentaro.
Really great to see you.
Yeah, you're amazing, and I love that you included Sabrina's voice in this.
Oh yeah, I am too. I'm really grateful.
You have a brilliant partner.
Voice. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So we are moving back to the Bay Area. Actually, Sabrina and the kids are flying out tomorrow, which seems a little crazy. So there's just a lot going on. Yeah, anyway, so they will be out there very shortly. I'll join them soon after. We're really looking forward to being back. It's been really great to connect up with some former colleagues and work in the Bay Area, really exciting things going on. Different districts, my former organization anyway, so just really grateful. We'll see what the future holds, but we're grateful for this all. So thank you all so much. Oh, I see Tito is on, my buddy from El Paso, math teacher, soccer coach extraordinaire. So thank you, Tito. Good to see you, man.
Just gonna say bye. I'm gonna catch a couple minutes of sleep before.
Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot, man. Good to see you. I appreciate it. Thanks for waking up.
But we should talk if you're coming back to San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Toll.
Right. Have a good one.
Thank you, my former department member. Yeah, there's a lot going on right now in San Francisco Unified, if you haven't seen the news. So yeah, there's a lot of things. So Salman, I'll see you Saturday, I think, for our walk. Looking forward to it. So thank you, man. Yeah, just so many of you. Jeff, I see you on. Thank you so much, man, for being here.
Kentaro, like so many other people, just so looking forward to having you back. You know me, I'm usually not left speechless. And I will tell you, I have been just incredibly moved this morning. And so just thank you. And so looking forward to having you back here.
Thank you, Gary. Gary's the president of ConnectEd, and I got to work there 7 years. It was just incredible work, and really appreciative of the work moving forward. Just the ways we can hopefully partner well with districts as they take on this work in math, and really trying to change and transform the way we do things. So really supporting some of the work in different districts. So anyway, thank you, Gary. Thank you so much.
We're just so grateful, Kentaro, for you bringing this work to us and allowing us to be a part of it. This is the work that you shared today is work that we've continued as you've been learning and growing. And it is literally, for those of you who don't know this story, it is literally the work that you met me at the door with in my then new position. It has been just such an honor to be a part of this with you. We're so grateful for everything that you've brought to us and everything that you'll continue to bring to this work.
Thank you so much, Jen. Jen is a colleague and my former director at ConnectEd. Just has been a wonderful partner in this work. She had us read about half of the EDLD curriculum when I got here. So immunity to change and JAWS stuff. But anyway, just a ton of work. We read HIFITs. So anyway, there's a ton of stuff Jen had us read in our team, which was just incredible. So a lot of the learning to improvements, anyway, all that stuff. I felt like I had an education before I even got here, for sure. So thank you. Thank you, Anne, my cousin in Canada. Good to see you, Thanks, Anne. Really looking forward to hopefully seeing you. Sorry it didn't work out for us to see you sooner or to make it out there. Yeah, thanks, Ms. Sawadi. I see you on. Thanks so much for your work, my son's teacher. Thank you very much for coming out. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, yeah, Sharon, early in the morning. Thank you. Norm, miss you and your family. I hope you're all doing well. So thanks, Evan, for being here. It's Joe. Brandon, thank you. Thanks, T10, for being out. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah,
Kentaro, this Brandon, I've been looking forward to this one a lot, and it was everything it lived up to. I have a special heart for mathematics, especially at the lower levels, and so everything you talked about, everything you spoke to, was really inspired me, and it really reminded me of why I got the great privilege of being in this program. So I hope to be able to connect with you. It was just an awesome defense. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much. So Brandon is part of the next cohort, C10. I really look forward to, oh, sorry, is that right? C11. I'm sorry. Yeah, I really look forward to that. Thank you so much, Brandon. I'm losing track of the numbers. So yeah, absolutely. I would really love that. And we missed the chance to meet you all in person. So we're looking forward to the day to do that. Really looking forward to that very much so. So yeah, thank you all very much. Yeah, and please go back to sleep if you're in California if you can. It's so crazy early. So again, thank you for your support and your love. Look forward to seeing where this goes to next in terms of the work and moving it forward.
Kentaro, thank you for bringing me into this work. You helped me navigate into the education space, and all of this work is going to be like, we have strategic planning meetings coming up. We have like a 5th, 6th grade pilot like discussion coming up today. You're paying it forward, so don't worry about paying it back. And we're gonna keep paying it forward, and like it's already exponential. So like it's just a gift, and I'm so grateful. And it's gonna be literally taken into every meeting that I go into today. So like it's already happening. So Dr. Iwasaki, take care. I'll check in with you later.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Jeff is from San Francisco Unified and now is out in the Boston area. So thank you, Jeff. Really incredible teacher. So yeah, thank you all, and so much for your impact in my life. Really appreciate it.
Kentaro, I just wanted to thank you too for your mentorship. There's a personal connection of just like living on the floor above you, and you kind of coaching me through EDLD. And so I just want to thank you for that. And I also want to just thank you for bringing in the weight of the label of honors and gifted, and how it can have adverse effects that oftentimes are not ever brought up or mentioned. And gosh, I just wish it was a story that was told more often, and you told it so well today. So I just love you, appreciate you, just feel so blessed to know you, and yeah, just really look up to you.
Thanks so much, Zach. Zach, like he said, he lived in the floor right above us, and he's from Fresno, so got to get to know him last year really well, and he and his family. He's now in Texas and heading to Washington for next year for his residency. So anyway, thank you, Zach. We miss you and your family, and we'll look forward to connecting maybe back in California. That's where you all end up. So thank you. And Trish is on, which has just been an amazing colleague in Somerville. So thank you, Trish.
I'm really happy to have that our paths have crossed. I feel so lucky. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you for letting me come on and join in the journey in Somerville, for welcoming me so much. I really appreciate it. It's been great to work with you in the district. So thanks so much.
And just to jump
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, love. Thank you.
Well, we're all so proud of you, but also just from Kai's here. Mia wants to go back to class. That's how much she loves school. So, but also just from an educator standpoint, like, this, but it's a fight worth fighting.
Thank you, love. Great to join it with you. So
I stand with you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm so proud of you, Papa.
Thank you, Kai. I'm proud of you. Love you. I see Jal back.
He disappeared again.
Okay. Thank you all for joining. And I think I head in with the committee. I come back when they announce it, but really great to see you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And I really receive your love. Hope to see many of you soon in person. you. Zach.
All right. Welcome back, or welcome us back. Needless to say, Kentaro has passed his defense. Congratulations. We're going to ask for one small minor revision. We want to hear a little bit more about the how of making some of these changes, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that in our sort of private group session. But what I wanted to tell I'm sort of like switching the order. Normally we would go off with Kentaro and then come back, but given that it's 10 o'clock now, we're going to congratulate him with the whole group right now, and then we're going to take Kentaro off and talk to him for a few minutes about what he did. So let's give Kentaro a round of applause on his part.
Way to go, Kentaro. Good job.
Whole Iwasaki family.
You're the best. You're the best.
Bravo.
Way to
go, Kentaro.
Thank you.
Kentaro.
Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you.
All right. So, Kentaro, can you come join us in the breakout room? EDLD folks, we should be back in like 10 or 12 minutes. So if you want to move on to your next thing, you're welcome to. If you want to stay, you're welcome to. Kentaro's family. Matt, can we leave this open?
Yeah, I think we need to close it out by quarter after. So if you've done by that time, that's great. Otherwise, I might recommend meeting in a different Zoom room.
Okay. All right. Well, I think then we probably should say goodbye for now, because by the time we get back, we'll just have a couple of minutes left. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. And congratulations, Kentaro, on a fabulous and inspiring defense. There were a lot of calls for this to be a TED Talk, a positive version of a TED Talk. Just to sort of like get this message out to the broader community. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
All right. So Kentaro, can you join us in the